Hollywood.
Did you say Hollywood?
I'm going Hollywood.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, you are looking west on Hollywood Boulevard.
I'm an agent. I winged in from Hollywood.
Right there on the red carpet in Hollywood.
From Hollywood.
Every star in Hollywood heaven is here.
Let's go to Hollywood, California.
Hollywood's biggest stars are just hours away from hitting the red carpet.
The heart of the entertainment world.
Hollywood. You know, Hollywood. The dream factory. The magic store. Hey, don't you ever go to the movies?
This crazy American city with like movies and people and celebrities everywhere.
Hollywood fueled the dreams of the world, and Beverly Hills became its bedroom.
The Hollywood Palace.
Hollywood, that city in sunny California that is so known to the entire world. A city brimming with movie stars and extravagant studios, Hollywood has been seen as the hub of the movie-making world for years, as a place where dreams come true and people grow rich and famous. There it is, Hollywood. But what if there's more than just Hollywood? What if there were another place that can bring storytelling ideas to life? A place that can bring stardom and fame on the big screen. A place that can bring unforgettable moments of entertainment to audiences all over the world. What if that place existed? Well, I'm here to tell you that it does. And it's called New Mexico. My name is Nefer Garcia, and I present to you Film in the Land of Enchantment. The history of film in New Mexico can be traced as far back as 1898, in the early days of the film medium itself. In that year, the Edison Company came out to the Pueblo of Isleta and filmed Indian Day School, a 50-second film showing Native American children coming in and out of a classroom. As inconsequential as this film may seem, Indian Day School made history as the first film to be shot in New Mexico and one of the first to be made in the West. This little actuality, then, would mark the beginning of the film industry that would thrive over the next century. Despite the initial fascination with filming in New Mexico, filming would not resume in the state until the 1910s, facilitated in part by the railroad and its ability to unite this isolated land with filmmakers in other parts of the nation. This was the same decade in which D.W. Griffith, the father of the narrative film himself, would truly define the filmmaking medium with The Birth of a Nation in 1915. In fact, it was D.W. Griffith himself who created one of the most notable pictures filmed in New Mexico during that decade, A Pueblo Legend. Made in 1912, this 20-minute film stars future star Mary Pickford and tells the story of two star-crossed lovers, a Hopi woman and her Pueblo boyfriend. Like Indian Day School, this film was shot on the Isleta Pueblo, with Griffith claiming that the Pueblo offered some of the finest scenic opportunities ever put into a picture. Another notable film of this decade, The Rattlesnake, was made in 1913 by another legendary film director, Romaine Fielding. Filmed in Las Vegas, this movie tells the story of a man who, jealous over his former lover's husband, attempts to poison him with a rattlesnake. Many of Fielding's films, including the futuristic The Golden God, filmed in 1913 in Silver City and released the following year, were lost in the fire of the Lubin Film Company. By this token, The Rattlesnake, being one of his only remaining works, is fundamental not only to New Mexico's early film history, but to the legacy of one of the great directors in the history of film itself. The 1920s did not see too much engagement with New Mexico filmmaking. However, there were some films made in this decade worth mentioning, and one of them just so happens to lie in our own backyard of Farmington, New Mexico. For Love of a Navajo, or alternatively Navajo Love, was an independent film made between 1922 and 1923 by either the Durango Film Company or the Navajo Film Company. According to Outlook, one of the male leads in the film, James Jarvis, who wrote the screenplay for the film, teamed up with a man named Marshall, who owned a theater in Durango, to make the movie after being rejected by Hollywood. With the help of a professional actress and cameraman from Hollywood, a filmmaker from Denver, an Englishman who borrowed his land for the filming, and Dene and other Native American actors, For Love of a Navajo came together, becoming, according to what Al Look alleges, the first film to involve Native American actors. The movie tells the story of an ill man and his sister who travel to New Mexico for his health, where a cowboy rescues them from a group of bandits. The sister and the cowboy fall in love, whereas the ill man is nursed by a Native American woman whom he in turn marries, with his sister and the cowboy marrying as well. While a copy of the film has not been found, the only surviving still from the film is found in the Farmington Museum. Another notable film of this decade is the 1929 film Redskin, starring Richard Dix as a Navajo named Wingfoot who, having attended a white school, battles prejudice from both non-Indians and Indians for not being either white or Navajo enough. Shot on the Navajo Reservation in western New Mexico in Gallup, this film was not only one of the first to be partially shot in Technicolor, it was also one of the first to show Native Americans in a positive light, contributing to the distinct culture New Mexico would build in its films as one truly representative of its own. The 1930s was a slow decade for film in New Mexico, with only 4 films having been made in that decade, including the first of 3 major Billy the Kid movies that would emerge throughout the progression of the 20th century. King Vidor's Billy the Kid in 1930, filmed in Gallup and starring Johnny Mac Brown in the titular role, was the first in a long line of Billy the Kid films, with the legendary outlaw being so characteristic of New Mexico's history and clearly reflected in its motion pictures. Not only was this film so personal to the state, but while Redskin in 1929 had an opening song and some sound effects, Billy the Kid was the first actual talkie, or movie with sound, filmed in New Mexico.
Mr. Dustin! Mr. Dustin!
So by the time the 1940s rolled around, talking pictures had become the filmmaking standard in both New Mexico and the world. This decade saw the production of films such as The Grapes of Wrath in 1940, Sundown in 1941, Sudan in 1945, Ride the Pink Horse in 1947, and Albuquerque in 1948. While only boasting a few more films in the 1930s, what little production the 1940s had was enough to make a splash in the filmmaking world. The Grapes of Wrath, in particular, directed by John Ford and starring Henry Fonda, garnered attention from filmmakers even outside of New Mexico. Based on John Steinbeck's 1939 novel of the same name, the film follows Tom Joad and his family as they go along Route 66 from Oklahoma to California after they have been dispossessed of their land. Grapes of Wrath, with filming locations in Santa Rosa and the Pickles River Bridge, not only received many favorable reviews, but it also received the honor of being the first film with filming locations in New Mexico to have won an Academy Award, winning 2 out of 7 nominations, those being for Best Direction and Best Supporting Actress.
Rich fellas come up and they die, and their kids ain't no good and they die out. But we keep a-comin'. We're the people that live. They can't wipe us out, they can't lick us. We'll go on forever, Pa, 'cause we're the people.
The film still stands recognized today, having made it to the 21st spot on the American Film Institute's original 1997 list of the 100 greatest American movies of all time, and remaining on the 23rd spot as of the 2007 revised list. After the 1940s, filmmaking in New Mexico would only grow as a result. The 1950s was perfect proof of that. New Mexico's film industry kicked off the midpoint of the 20th century without losing a second, with movies such as King Solomon's Mines in 1950, Ace in the Hole in New Mexico in 1951, and The Atomic City in 1952 being great examples of this. However, even more than all of these movies, there is one in particular that really launched New Mexico's filming career in the 1950s, one that is so influential yet so unheard of. That movie is the 1954 drama Salt of the Earth. To understand how Salt of the Earth is so important, we have to go back to 1947, when the House Un-American Activities Committee was investigating communist ties to the movie industry in the midst of the Red Scare. 3 men involved in the mix were director Herbert J. Bimmerman, producer Paul Jericho, and screenwriter Michael Wilson. When they refused to testify to the court, they were blacklisted from the Hollywood studios. It was then that they decided to go to Silver City and film what was promoted as an honest movie about American working people. According to the AFI catalog of the movie, the story was based on a 1951-52 strike by the International Union of Mine, Mill, and Smelter Workers against Empire Zinc, a subsidiary of New Jersey Zinc, in which Juan Chacon and Clinton Jenks participated. This strike was mostly due to the discrimination Mexican-American miners faced in receiving lower pay and worse working conditions than did the Anglos. Chacon and Jenks, along with other miners and their families, played characters in the film. What was so influential about this movie, though, aside from being the only US blacklisted film, was its depiction of social issues that, while openly addressed today, were unspoken of in the 1950s. As New Mexico Magazine editor and Santa Fe, New Mexican film critic John Bauman put it, besides its radical pro-labor sympathies and muckraking exposure of bigotry, the film embraced feminist notions years before that became fashionable.
Well, look who's talking. A new world champion of women's rights.
Especially when the women had to take over the picket lines after a judge ordered the miners to stop picketing.
The Anglo bosses look down on you, and you hate them for it. Stay in your place, you dirty Mexican. That's what they tell you. But why must you say to me, stay in your place? Do you feel better having someone lording you?
Shut up, you're talking crazy.
Whose neck shall I stand on to make me feel superior, and what will I have out of it? I don't want anything lower than I am. I am low enough already. I want to rise and to push everything up with me as I go.
Will you be still?
And if you can't understand this, you are a fool, because you can't win this strike without me. You can't win anything without me. That would be the old way. Never try to me again.
Of course, such a contested film was bound to be met with opposition, so much so that a union hall was a target of arson, and the lead actress, Rosaura Revueltas, was deported back to Mexico, where she managed to record her final scene and, allegedly, her voice-over narration. While the film only had a limited release in the United States, it was met with wide success in Europe. The film is currently on the National Film Registry for Cultural, Historical, or Aesthetic Significance. Other notable films of the decade include the 1955 movies Oklahoma, with second unit photography in Santa Fe, and The Man from Laramie, which was the first film to be shot at the Bonanza Creek Ranch in Tesuque Pueblo. The ranch is currently closed to the public, but is still one of New Mexico's most popular filming locations. And of course, we have to mention yet another Billy the Kid adaptation, The Left-Handed Gun, released in 1958 and starring Paul Newman as the infamous outlaw. Speaking of Paul Newman, let's jump to what may perhaps be the most influential decade for film in New Mexico. Not only is Paul Newman a defining part of the film industry in 1960s New Mexico, but so is the Santa Fe Film Office. Yeah, I'm getting a bit ahead of myself. Launching off our look into some of the great New Mexico films of the 1960s is Lonely Are the Brave, a 1962 movie based on the novel The Brave Cowboy, written by Edward Abbey and filmed in Albuquerque and the Tijeras Canyon. The film tells the story of Jack Burns, who, yearning for the open frontier of the West that New Mexico used to be, challenges the law as well as the greater force of civilization and is on the run for his life. Lonely Are the Brave stars Kirk Douglas, who said this movie was his favorite to make. But what makes this film so influential is what it symbolizes regarding film adaptations and how that would change the nature of New Mexico filmmaking forever. Shortly after selling the book's film rights to Kirk Douglas, Abbey lamented the fact that Kirk Douglas had paid him only $2,500 for them. Lamenting right along with him was Max Evans, who would soon write a novel of his own that would also attract Hollywood's attention, The Rounders. While its movie adaptation was not filmed in New Mexico due to director Burt Kennedy's tight time schedule, it would give Evans ties to Hollywood that would not only benefit him in the future, but the entire state as a whole. From negotiating film rights for his next novel, The High-Low Country, with Sam Peckinpah, to the other 5 movies Kennedy and Peckinpah directed in the area, New Mexico as a filmmaking hub was becoming more apparent. Powder keg exploded when, as Evans writes in the book 100 Years of Filmmaking in New Mexico, theater manager Lou Gasparini and newspaper columnist Chuck Middlestat approached then-Governor David Cargo with the idea of starting up a New Mexico Film Commission run by Cargo. Described by Evans as the beginning of a small miracle, the concept was agreed upon by the former 3 and the state's first film commission was formed. When it was found that Academy Award winner Charles Lemaire and Evans were the only ones with connections in Hollywood, Evans' role in the foundation of the Santa Fe Film Office was solidified. After contributing to the creation of a western street at the J.W. Eves Ranch, Evans foolishly, as he puts it, volunteered to go at my own expense to California to talk to some prominent producers and directors into meeting with our governor and the committee members at the Beverly Hills Hotel. In early 1968, and perhaps by another miracle, Evans succeeded in securing a meeting at the Beverly Hills Hotel with 35 major producers and, in his words, another 35 or so assorted directors, production managers, and screenwriters, all accomplished people who were interested in getting things done, to discuss the governor's commission for filmmaking. It was a success, with Hollywood deciding that filming in New Mexico would facilitate their job, and several films having been committed to filming in the state. The New Mexico Film Commission, which evolved into the current New Mexico Film Office, was so successful that other states started jumping on the bandwagon. Even then, and even with the ups and downs that were to follow, this mission created a boom for New Mexico's film industry, including other 60s films like Hang 'em High of that same year, which follows Clint Eastwood as Jed Cooper, a man falsely accused of theft who survives his own lynching, and Easy Rider, a controversial 1969 film with a strong anti-hero premise. Easy Rider stars Dennis Hopper, who also directed the movie, as Billy, and Peter Fonda as Captain America as they travel through the Southwest from California to Louisiana for Mardi Gras. Very unlike the westerns that had become so characteristic of New Mexico, the movie features motorcycles instead of horses, Indian good guys against police bad guys, and the notable lack of fables, myths, or legends. Despite its initial controversy, the film has been highly regarded since then, as it held the 88th spot on the AFI's original list of the 100 greatest American movies of all time, and was promoted to the 84th spot on the updated 2008 list. But wait, where's Paul Newman, you ask?
Butch Cassidy's Hole in the Wall Gang, that's me.
Only in one of the last great and most influential westerns of the 20th century. Rounding out the eventful decade of the 1960s is the 1969 film Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, starring, yes, Paul Newman as Butch Cassidy, and then Hollywood newcomer Robert Redford as his pal, the Sundance Kid, both notorious outlaws who, chased down due to their crimes, escaped to Bolivia with Sundance's girlfriend, Etta Place, played by Catherine Ross.
Listen, I don't mean to be a sore loser, but when it's done, if I'm dead, kill him. Love to.
The screenplay, written by William Goldman, was originally met with skepticism due to the plot of outlaws fleeing the country, which was unheard of in a western, with one studio head even remarking, "All I know is John Wayne don't run away."
Whatever they're selling, I don't want it.
But that is what actually happened with the real Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid, and Goldman refused to cut it out. After a quick edit on a different part of the script, however, everyone wanted it, even with the outlaws fleeing to Bolivia.
Hey, Butch! What? They're very good!
Having won 4 out of the 7 Academy Award nominations it received, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid was also included in the AFI's Top 100 list, being on the 50th place of the original list and on the 73rd place of the updated one. And so it was that the 1960s were a monumental decade for film in New Mexico. Following up the successful 1960s, the 1970s were by no means a slow decade for the now government-recognized film industry in New Mexico, boasting a total of 88 productions, including Chisholm, a 1970 film starring John Wayne and following the Lincoln County War and its major players, A Gunfight in 1971, which was supported both financially and creatively by the Jicarilla Apache tribe, The Cowboys in 1972, another John Wayne Western filmed in the Bonanza Creek Ranch, and When the Legends Die in 1972, filmed here in Farmington and crediting the help of the Southern Ute tribe. The 1970s also attracted attention from Hollywood for even some of its more Hollywood-esque productions. Take the 1978 film Superman, for example. With filming locations in New York, Canada, and even Europe, Superman still adds little old isolated New Mexico into the mix, specifically the Red Rock State Park, now known as Superman Canyon, near Gallup, with the credits even giving thanks to the New Mexico State Film Commission. One other such movie is Butch and Sundance: The Early Days, released in 1979. Though the original cast had no involvement with its prequel, the success of Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, in true Hollywood fashion, just had to span another film. This time, however, the film had more involvement in New Mexico, with filming locations including the Eves Movie Ranch, Rancho de las Golondrinas, Prima Springs, and Valle Grande. Finally, one movie to mention, and that shocked me upon learning about it, is Jim Henson's The Muppet Movie in 1979. Ironically enough, for a film about Hollywood success, the first feature film of the Muppets franchise had scenes shot in New Mexico, which once...
Exterior desert night.
That's right, the desert scenes. Primarily due to Muppet creator Jim Henson's fascination with New Mexico, the Muppet movie, while upholding the Hollywood dream, still manages to shed light on what New Mexico could do for the film industry, proving how the Land of Enchantment was certainly enchanting to filmmakers and would remain so in the decades to follow. The 1980s saw the making of The Ballad of Gregorio Cortez, based on Americo Paredes' novel With His Pistol in His Hand in 1982. Directed by Robert M. Young and starring Edward James Olmos in the titular role, the film tells the story of the true Gregorio Cortez, whom Bauman describes as a dirt-poor farmer who became the object of the largest manhunt in Texas history after he was accused in 1901 of gunning down 2 sheriffs in cold blood. Aside from its treatment of a controversial crime allegation and what Bauman calls Olmos' career-making performance, this movie stands out for being filmed in New Mexico instead of Texas, where it takes place. According to Young, we found we could recreate the historic settings we wanted more easily in New Mexico. For us, it really couldn't have worked out any better. Ballad of Gregorio Cortez was filmed in the Cumbres and Toltec Railroad in Chama, the Eves Movie Ranch, Las Vegas, and Santa Fe. Then in 1985 came Silverado, a movie so recognized that its filming location, the Cook Ranch near Santa Fe, is named in tandem with the Silverado sets built for the film. As a Netflix description of the film puts it, when a mischievous, motley crew of Old West cowboys arrives in a small town to seek their fortunes, they clash with corrupt leaders and past enemies.
I walked out on the street, and this fella tries to shoot me in the back.
You had to kill him?
Well, no, I winged him, and he dropped his gun.
You're in here for winging a guy.
No, not exactly, because see that his friend opened up on me.
What friend's that?
There's the one with the shotgun.
The dead one.
Silverado was nominated for 2 Academy Awards, Best Sound and Best Musical Score, and was noted by Max Evans for having been one of the post-Governor's Commission westerns that made noise. The movie's end credits give special thanks to their New Mexico personnel, also noting that Silverado was filmed entirely on location in New Mexico. Producers wish to thank the New Mexico Film Commission and the people of New Mexico for their help in the making of this film. The Milagro Beanfield War, a 1988 movie directed by Robert Redford, was based on the novel of the same name by Jack Nichols. It tells the story of Chick Venera, played by Joe Mondragon, and his fight to keep his rights to the beanfield that has been in his family for generations, while James Gammon, the Anglo real estate developer played by Lad Devine, wants to keep him away from it as part of a planned resort development. Filmed in Los Alamos, Santa Fe, the Santa Fe National Forest near Cochiti Lake, and Truchas, this film places an emphasis on the constant battle between Hispanic and Anglo, tradition and progress, family versus individualism, working class versus aristocracy, as John A. Murray puts it in his book, Cinema Southwest, an illustrated guide to the movies and their locations, being a true testament to Hispanic culture, especially as seen in New Mexico. Other notable films of 1988 include Young Guns, yet a third major Billy the Kid production, starring Emilio Estevez in the role, and filmed at the Bonanza Creek Ranch, Cerrillos, El Rancho de las Golondrinas, Galisteo Dam area, Ojo Caliente, and Tesuque Pueblo, as well as Twins, a comedy starring Arnold Schwarzenegger and Danny DeVito as twin brothers switched at birth, which was filmed in Los Alamos, Santa Fe, and Taos. Finally, the 1980s are rounded out by Lonesome Dove, a 4-part miniseries, though at times mistakenly referred to as a movie, filmed in 1989 at the Bonanza Creek Ranch, Cook Ranch Silverado sets, San Ildefonso Pueblo, Santa Fe, and the Santo Domingo Pueblo. Based on Larry McMurtry's novel, the miniseries follows the 2 proprietors of the Hat Creek Cattle Company as they embark on a journey to move their herd from Lonesome Dove, Texas to Montana. By 2000, Murray described the series as having remained one of the most highly rated television productions ever made. The 21st century was just around the corner when the 1990s came to be. With this decade came some of the last films of the 20th century, all of which provided a bridge into the future of New Mexico's film industry. One of the films that kicked off the 90s was Young Guns 2 in 1990. Filmed in Cook Ranch Silverado sets, Galisteo, Tent Rocks near Cochiti Pueblo, and the White Sands Monument, this movie continues the story of Billy the Kid as he and his gang traverse the New Mexico territory to escape the angry clutches of Pat Garrett. Not only does this movie prove the timelessness and fame of New Mexico's Billy the Kid, it also proves how, at the first sign of success, Hollywood is ready to jump for more. Then came Wyatt Earp, a 1994 Western with filming locations in the Cumbres and Toltec Scenic Railroad in Chama, the Cook Ranch Silverado set, Eve's Movie Ranch, El Rancho de las Golondrinas, Ghost Ranch, Las Vegas, Santa Clara Pueblo, Tesuque Pueblo, and Zia Pueblo. Directed by Lawrence Kasdan of Silverado fame and starring Kevin Costner as Wyatt Earp, the movie tells the story of legendary lawman Wyatt Earp from Wichita to Dodge City to the OK Corral in Tombstone, as IMDb puts it.
Mister, I've been in a real bad mood for a couple of years, so why don't you leave me alone?
Fast forward to 1998 with another personally New Mexican film in The Staircase. Directed by Karen Arthur and with filming locations in Bonanza Creek Ranch, Eve's Movie Ranch, El Rancho de las Golondrinas, and San Juan Pueblo, Staircase depicts the story surrounding the famous spiral staircase of Loreto Chapel in Santa Fe, which was miraculously built by a mysterious man named Jose, or Jode as he calls himself in the movie, played by William Peterson, whom the Sisters of Loreto, with the lead nun being played by Barbara Hershey, believed to have been Saint Joseph the Carpenter himself. Last and certainly not least comes The High-Low Country, the 1998 film that not only helped launch Max Evans' connection to Hollywood 30 years prior to its release, but that would also make his dreams come true of seeing a major adaptation of one of his works. Based on his book of the same name, The High-Low Country follows Pete Calder, played by Billy Crudup, and Big Boy Madsen, played by Woody Harrelson, two cowboys whose friendship is tested when they fall in love with the same girl, played by Patricia Arquette. The movie was executive produced by Martin Scorsese, directed by Stephen Frears, and has filming locations in Española, Las Vegas, and the surrounding area, San Jose, and Santa Fe. With The High-Low Country being one of the last films of the 90s, the long line of New Mexico's 20th century film history had come to an end. Then came the 21st century, and with it, a thriving future for the film industry in the Land of Enchantment. Since the turn of the century, we have seen numerous film projects created in our state. There are way too many to name, but here are some of these such films. New Mexico saw the production of Jericho in 2000, the first New Mexico film production of the 20th century, The Longest Yard in 2005, an Adam Sandler sports film, and I'll even add Pixar's Cars in 2006 to the list. Because while this film was completely animated and mostly based in Arizona, the Texas-New Mexico border ghost town of Glen Rio was the city that, according to Route magazine, had the greatest impact on Lasseter and his team. On top of that, the city of Tucumcari has a notable influence on the overall design and feel of the fictional town of Radiator Springs. Moving on to 2000 is No Country for Old Men, a Coen Brothers crime thriller, followed by Transformers, with a filming location in Shiprock from our very own San Juan County making an appearance, as its peak is a common occurrence with New Mexico films. 2008 brought upon one of the most recognized pieces of media produced in New Mexico. Though not a film, given its fame it would be practically impossible not to mention, and that is Breaking Bad. Set and filmed in Albuquerque between 2008 and 2013, this series stars Bryan Cranston as Walter White, a high school chemistry teacher who, upon being diagnosed with stage 3 terminal lung cancer and given only 2 years to live, turns to creating blue meth with a former student in order to secure the futures of his pregnant wife and his son who has cerebral palsy. The popularity of the show has not only spawned a spin-off series, Better Call Saul, between 2015 and 2022, and a film, El Camino, a Breaking Bad movie, in 2019, but it has also created a name for itself in Albuquerque, for better or for worse. The series has increased tourism to Albuquerque with tours of the filming locations and even a gift shop having been put in place, but it has also created an idea of Albuquerque being a place where the drug trade, amongst other crimes, run loose. How accurate this may or may not be is up to New Mexico natives, but the fact remains, Breaking Bad has had a heavy influence on filmmaking in the state. The 2010s soon arrived, and with it came films such as The Book of Eli, a post-apocalyptic film starring Denzel Washington, and The Avengers, released in 2012. The latter in particular is notable for 80% of its production being in New Mexico, especially in 6 of the 12 sound stages in what was formerly known as Albuquerque Studios. The helicarrier set, which is a focal point of the movie, was actually built on location in these sound stages as well. proving how New Mexico could be a valuable asset in producing important parts of major Hollywood films. This decade continued with films like Disney's The Lone Ranger in 2013, filmed in Shiprock, Angel Fire, Hurley, IBQ, Puerto Valley, and Albuquerque studios, and A Million Ways to Die in the West in 2014, another Coen Brothers production that is also noted on the Farmington-San Juan County's filmography list. Then came Sicario, a 2015 action thriller with filming locations in Corrales and Albuquerque, The Magnificent Seven, a 2016 western starring Denzel Washington and Chris Pratt, and filmed in Ghost Ranch, Eve's Movie Ranch, Galisteo, Valles Caldera, Plaza Blanca, and Santa Fe Studios, Logan, a 2017 movie starring Hugh Jackman in the titular role and with a filming location in Rio Rancho, and The Ballad of Buster Scruggs in 2018, yet another Coen Brothers western with filming locations in Albuquerque, Diablo Canyon, Eve's Movie Ranch, Bonanza Creek Ranch, Ghost Ranch, and San Cristobal Ranch. 2018 was also a notable year for film in New Mexico, as it was the year that Netflix purchased Albuquerque Studios, making it the company's first production hub in the United States, as is stated on the Netflix In Your Neighborhood New Mexico website. That announcement goes on to say that Netflix ABQ Studios will become a center of production activity. In 2020, we began the process of expanding ABQ Studios, with completion expected in 2024. Not only does this further highlight New Mexico's place on the filmmaking map, it also creates more jobs, contributing to the state's overall economic and film development. Rounding off the 2010s is The Goldfinch in 2019, based on the novel of the same name, starring Oaks Fagley and filmed in Albuquerque. Jumanji: The Next Level in 2019, starring Dwayne The Rock Johnson, Jack Black, Kevin Hart, and Karen Gillan, and with a filming location in Shiprock. And Lady of Guadalupe, which, while released digitally in 2020, was produced in 2019, with the scenes of the Bishop's house filmed in El Rancho de las Golondrinas. There have been a couple of notable films in our current decade, with one such film being the not yet publicly released At the End of the Santa Fe Trail, film adaptation of Sister Blandina Segala's memoir of the same name, in which she details her experiences in Trinidad, Colorado, Santa Fe, and Albuquerque. Filmed in location in Chama and Santa Fe and in a studio in Albuquerque, this movie was featured at the 2023 Santa Fe Film Festival, with director Tomas Sanchez having won the Best Director of a Feature Film. He and a few other cast members came to Farmington in September to show the film at the Toda Theater for its second screening in New Mexico. It is still unknown when the film will be released in theaters, but we can be sure that this film will be a wonderful testament to New Mexico's history and to filmmaking in the area. In 2023, we also had the controversy with Coyote vs. Acme, the CG live-action hybrid starring John Cena, Will Forte, and Lana Condor. With the live-action scenes filmed in Albuquerque, this film tells the story of Looney Tunes' Wile E. Coyote, who, after all of Acme's products have failed to help him catch Roadrunner, decides to sue the company. The film was set to release alongside another New Mexico production, Oppenheimer, but was instead replaced by the Barbie movie. In November of 2023, Warner Brothers announced that they would be shelving off the already completed film, reportedly for a tax write-off, despite generally favorable reviews from test audiences. After pushback from the internet and filmmakers alike, Warner Brothers allowed companies to make offers to purchase Coyote vs. Acme for distribution, but has not accepted any of them. Not only has the company received a lot of backlash in shelving a movie the public wants to see, but it has also impacted a New Mexico production that has the potential to be a huge success. Coyote vs. Acme's future remains uncertain. But we do know that what was originally supposed to be its co-release, Oppenheimer, was a major success for New Mexico's filmography. Directed by Christopher Nolan and starring Cillian Murphy in the titular role, Oppenheimer tells the story of Robert J. Oppenheimer and the development of the atomic bomb, which was tested near Alamogordo, New Mexico. The movie had multiple filming locations in New Mexico, including facilities in Los Alamos, where the bomb was assembled, Ghost Ranch, Belen, and Santa Fe. The film was recently celebrated earlier this year at the 96th Academy Awards, winning 7 out of the 13 Oscars it was nominated for, including Best Original Score, Director, Actor in a Leading Role, Actor in a Supporting Role, Cinematography, Film Editing, and last but most definitely not least, Best Motion Picture of the Year. So, with all that being said, one has to wonder, Why New Mexico? What is it about this isolated state that has attracted filmmakers from all over and made such a mark on the filmmaking world? Several people have given their 2 cents as to why this may be, at least from their point of view. The Staircase director Craig Anderson particularly praised New Mexico's atmosphere, saying that, "The light is very important to me when I'm making a movie, and the light there has interesting qualities to it that show up on film always." He reiterated that filming in Santa Fe was a very good experience, and I can't say that for all the places we've been. Vampires director John Carpenter especially praised the spectacular locations and the local hire, saying that the pleasant thing about it was that everybody worked really hard. Everybody wanted to work. Even Silverado and Wyatt Earp director Lawrence Kasdan had his fair share of praise for the state, calling it one of the most beautiful places I've ever been in. "I truly love New Mexico," and how at times he would be alone at Cook Ranch where you had an incredible 360-degree view of that area with the sun going down, and they're some of the happiest moments of my life. Muppet creator Jim Henson himself was drawn to the state, having owned 313 acres of land in Santa Fe, and given a comment he made to his son about feeling that Taos was the place I'm supposed to be, had his ashes spread over the area as his final resting place. John Murray describes the appeal of New Mexico as being the result of its intense natural light and enchanting natural scenes, where, and I quote, "Filmmakers have consistently found a series of landscapes that can provide the stage for virtually any story the human imagination can conceive." New Mexicans are apparently aware of this as they have responded accordingly. As of July 2023, tax credits for qualifying films have increased, with Tri-City Record reporting that the maximum tax credits available are 40%, with a base of 25% plus 10% for being an uplift zone and 5% for using a qualified facility. On top of this additional aid, there is a statewide push for filmmaking, with San Juan County being a great example of this, what with SJC's own film and media department and with the local backlot facility that has been built in La Plata. From the creation of the Governor's Film Commission, which is now the New Mexico State Film Office, back in the 1960s, to the current tax incentives in the state and numerous film departments being created, it's no wonder that filmmakers flock to New Mexico. It's as simple as this: New Mexico has a lot to offer, and the state works hard to help that come to fruition. When I first moved to New Mexico, I had no idea what place I was getting myself into. Having been born and raised in Los Angeles, California, I became fascinated by the movies at a very young age. I always thought I had no reason to leave my hometown, which, in my mind, had been the biggest filmmaking hub in the world. And it took me some time after moving here to realize exactly what New Mexico meant for filmmakers. Truth be told, the Hollywood ideal has faded away over the years. What with constant strikes, hyper-political infiltration, and a general decrease in actual storytelling quality, Hollywood isn't all it's cut out to be. But that doesn't mean the film industry as a whole has to fall away with it. After all, there is a whole world of filmmaking to be explored in the state, in my new state of residence. Isolated and unbothered New Mexico may be a complete contrast to bustling California. The magic of the movies exists here as well. In fact, filmmaking has thrived for over 100 years in this state, and by the looks of it, the film industry is only bound to grow from here. Maybe there is still hope that I can achieve those childhood dreams of making it out in the movies, and it just might be here, right in the Land of Enchantment.
Raindrops are falling on my head, and just like the guy whose feet are too big for his bed, nothing seems to fit. Those raindrops are falling on my head, they keep falling. So I just did me some talking to the sun.